Hey guys, Austin here again with a cheap and lazy channel backer only video. Just using my standard webcam today. We've got Q-tips from cleaning NES cartridges and they're just flying all over the place. My cat likes to get to them too. Speaking of cat, Milo, you coming back up, bud? You coming back up, man? Ugh. Anyway, what I thought I would do is show off some recent cartridge pickups. I don't really collect anymore, and I've been heavily downsizing several areas of my collection. But one thing I am still once in a blue moon focusing on is NES and SNES carts. Not going for a full set on either one. The goal with NES is to maybe get a little over 300, which I'm nearing that objective. And with SNES, it's just to fill up a couple shelves, which would probably equate to a little over 100 games. And I've still got a ways to go before finishing that up. But I downsized a lot of PS2 games, some of my Dreamcast games, and my PS1 games. Stuff that I can basically end up playing via other means where I don't need the actual discs. And a lot of the discs I had were for genres like shoot 'em ups, so they were pretty valuable. And so I got a lot of store credit recently and ended up converting it down to NES games and Super NES games. A couple of these games I'm going to show off today, I actually did pay for out of pocket, just a few cheap games I found at some local game stores, but I figured I would show you them one by one in roughly increasingly order of value. So we're going to start off with the cheap ones and end with the more pricey ones. The pricey ones in particular, remember I paid for it all in store credit. There's no money out of pocket because collecting is expensive. And it's a gigantic waste of money. I could, with some of these expensive games, I could be putting that money towards something, more useful in my life. But when it comes to only having store credit, it's like, well, I'm going to convert it over to more games. So anyway, we're going to start off with NES. So I grabbed Ikari Warriors. I'm actually very surprised I did not own this. I've been collecting NES carts for the 17th time, starting about 4 or 5 years ago. It was like 2020 or 2021. This is a super common game. I figured I would own it, but apparently I did not. Not a very good game, as everybody knows, but it is something I wanted to have just to goof off with. Next up is Home Alone 2. Also, not a very good game. It's Western developed. It's jank as hell, but it was relatively cheap. So I don't really have any limits on NES, except for I'm not gonna pad it out with lots of really bad sports games. Anything that's not a sports game, I'm pretty much game for on the system. Now there are exceptions. I did get Hoops by Jalico, which is a basketball game. I actually tried playing it on stream, and I don't think I was able to make a single basket. So this actually kind of counts as sports filler. So when it comes time to basically stop buying NES carts, I'll probably start getting rid of some of the cheap bad sports games like Hoops and try to get better games to fill those slots. Caesar's Palace, which is just a casino gambling game. It's actually kind of interesting. I did play it for a little bit the other day, but there's not a whole lot to it. But very cheap game. Next, I got for grins, it's Monopoly. Everyone knows Monopoly. I played the Master System one a lot growing up, and I played a little bit of the Super Nintendo one. But I did fire this up for the first time after I got it, and I was like, hey, this is kind of interesting. It's a little busy, though. It's kind of hard to keep track of what's going on in that version. We've got Joust, which is a pretty solid little conversion. I think the old Satoru Iwata was actually responsible for programming this version. I think that's the story behind it. And it may have been like a demonstration for the hardware, and it ended up being so decent that they ended up just, getting it published. I think that's sort of the story behind it, but yeah, pretty solid little version. It's not arcade perfect, but it's still pretty cool. Defender of the Crown. I've never actually played this version of the game. I know this came from computers and it was pretty popular on computers. I did try firing this one up, but I couldn't get the cartridge clean enough for my AVS to recognize it. Actually, no, that's not entirely true. I think what happened is I fired it up and then realized there was a crap ton of text, and I was drunk by that point, and I was like, no, we'll have to do this another day. We've got Pac-Man. It's actually a really solid version of Pac-Man. This is most likely a later release because it's a Tengen title, but in a gray cartridge, so it's officially licensed. The black cart Tengen games were not officially licensed, and Nintendo did not like that very much. Next up is Krusty's Funhouse. It's kind of an interesting, almost Lemmings-style puzzle game. This version's not bad, but the colors are absolutely garish and terrible, so it's really ugly to look at, but it's still pretty fun to play. I want to go back and try the Super Nintendo version, because I remember that being really colorful, and the concept's pretty fun. Speaking of Tengen, we got Afterburner. I always pass on this one, because for some reason at retail stores, like, everyone wants like $20 for it, and I don't want to spend $20 on NES games, but it's actually not a bad game, but you know, I'm just so used to these games being like $5-10 tops, but even like these common games have, like, some of them have gone up in price a lot, and I've just been pushing them off, but I'm at a point where I've picked off all like the $5, $6, $7, $8 games, and even the $15 games are getting kind of rare for me because I have so many cartridges, and so like now I'm looking at $20 a pop for a bunch of games. Next is The Magic of Scheherazade. This is like a top-down action role-playing game, I think. It always looks kind of interesting, but I have never played it before and always wanted to. The cartridge itself, you're not going to be able to see it because the exposure is washed out. This is why I don't like using regular webcams for this sort of thing. But yeah, the cartridge label's not the best. So, but it's not ripped or anything, so I'm not gonna be too picky with common-ish games like this. Next up is Popeye, port of the arcade game by Nintendo. Pretty fun game. I actually had this one growing up, so I have a major soft spot for it. Next up is Indie Heat. This is a really good top-down super sprint / super off-road style driving game, and the NES version is actually quite uncommon. Yeah, this came out after Super Off-Road. I think this was like 92. So this is that era of NES where like people had started, you know, moving over to the 16-bit gen in droves. And so some of these 92 releases and on tend to be less well-known and less talked about. But this one's really awesome. Highly recommend it if you haven't played it and you like those top-down driving games. Next up is Nightshade. Like I said, we're going from cheapest to more expensive and less common. Nightshade is a really cool point-and-click style adventure game with a few action sections. And I've only played it for the first time recently, and I laughed my ass off on the first few screens. It's clearly got a big sense of humor to it, and it's definitely something I'd like to finish eventually. Next up is Clu Clu Land. Surprisingly, this one's actually gone up in price a lot. I don't know if that's because it's on Switch Online now, and it's been in a bunch of different Nintendo compilations, or I think it was like a secret game in Animal Crossing back in the day. Really unique game that's actually quite tough to play, and I think that's why a lot of people kind of overlook it. Next up is Miss Pac-Man. Surprisingly, this is fairly uncommon now. This was like $60-ish. It's gone up in price a lot. So, since I had lots of store credit, I figured I would snag it, and there's actually some writing right there. I wonder if I can like get that off. I'm not really too picky right now, but yeah, that's actually, of all these games, the only one I haven't fired up yet. So I don't know the quality of that conversion versus the original Pac-Man. I assume it's pretty decent. Next up, Super Spy Hunter. This is one you do not see very often at all. And it is actually a pretty awesome game. It's one of the few shoot 'em ups on the system I actually hadn't played until just recently. And it's very cool. Very, very cool. Some very impressive visual effects too. All right, the last one. I posted this on my YouTube community posts, so some of you guys have probably already seen it, and I've also posted it on social media, but it is the big boy, DuckTales 2. This is actually kind of what incentivized me to start trading in some of my stuff, because this thing does not pop up very often at all. And what's really cool about it is, like with Super Spy Hunter, it actually had the manual with it too. And so the cart plus manual, it does not come in to the local game stores ever, pretty much. And so I had kind of like a once in a very long time opportunity to get it. And so I did. I went through with it, and here we go. And I actually got through most of the game the other night. It's pretty fun. Not as good as the first game, but it is still worth playing, I think. If you have a flash cart, you should definitely fire it up and play through it. It's got more puzzle elements, and I think you have to revisit stages more often before you can unlock the end. I haven't gotten to the end yet, but I feel like I got kind of close. I got through all the main first area levels. I don't know if the game expands a lot more past that. I assume it probably doesn't, because it's an NES game. But yeah, we'll see. I'm definitely going to go back to it. You guys can probably expect a Let's Play of it eventually once I learn how to get through it. So, but yeah, so that's not it. We're moving on to Super Nintendo now. And so starting off with that, I picked up Kid Clown in Crazy Chase. So I actually did a Let's Play of this a couple of years ago. I went through it for the first time. I thought it was a really fun game and very overlooked. So yeah, not too expensive, fairly cheap. Next up is Out of This World, aka Another World from Other Regions. This is one I actually grew up with. I first played this game on Super Nintendo, so I wanted to own the Super Nintendo version. And it's still a fun version to play. It's a little bit slower than some of the contemporaries, like the Genesis or Sega CD versions. But it's still pretty cool, especially for a Super Nintendo game. This was, one of the earliest games in the what we now know as the cinematic platformer genre. That, Prince of Persia, Flashback, they were all a part of that. Next up is Raiden Trad. I don't know why they added the name Trad to it. It's just Raiden. Part of the arcade game. Not a very good version, but I just have a soft spot for it because it's got decent music, and some of the gameplay is so janky and dumb that it's just fun. So... But I want to try to get almost all the shmups on Super Nintendo. Probably everyone except for Aero Fighters, because Aero Fighters is, like, stupidly expensive. We're talking, like, if DuckTales 2 is expensive, Milo, come on, man. Hold on a second. Milo's getting into things he's not supposed to be getting into. But anyway, you can already see the next game, and it is Ys 3, Wanderers from Ys. And major soft spot for this version, because I first played it on Super Nintendo back when it was relatively new. My best friend at the time had a Super Nintendo. He would rent games like every weekend, and he rented this, and yeah, we both loved it back then. And I've since played almost every version of Ys 3, including... this latest, another pickup from last week, which is the Oath and Felghana remaster, sort of. It's with an asterisk by it, but yeah, I played most versions of Ys 3, and but I still wanted to have this one in my Super Nintendo cart collection because it's a good game, and yeah. All right, this one I have not played. It's called The Seventh Saga. It is a turn-based Japanese-style role-playing game. It's by Enix. I didn't even realize it was by Enix until just now. But I've been watching a friend of mine on YouTube. He goes by Diamond Long Plays, but he's also known as Lucha Jim over on Twitch and in the speedrun community. And he's been doing speedruns of this game, and I thought it looked really cool. So I want to actually try to play this, maybe even do like a blind stream on YouTube and just try to figure it out. That'd be kind of fun. All right, last but not least... Not as expensive as DuckTales 2, but it's getting up there in price now, and that is Soul Blazer, also by Enix. I believe this was developed by Quintet. They have, there's like the Quintet trilogy on Super Nintendo. It's, well, actually, no, I think Quintet did a bunch of stuff. They did like Illusion of Gaia, ActRaiser, Soul Blazer. So yeah, I've never actually played Soul Blazer, but I've seen video of it, and it looks really good, so I knew that, with this credit, I definitely wanted to take this one home and add it to the set. Because this is one of those where the price is probably just going to keep going up. or it's going to stay where it's at, which is well over $100, and it's like, you know, I can't justify that kind of money out of pocket. But when I've got store credit, it's like, you might as well jump on it, dude. So I did. Oh, last but not least, I picked up Towering Inferno for the Atari 2600. I don't know why I bought this. I mean, it looks like it might be a decent game, but I'm thinking about completely getting rid of my 2600 carts. So it's like, why did you do this? Why did you buy this? Anyway, yeah, that's it, guys. I just felt like it would be cool to show off all that stuff. Yay, physical media and hoarding. I can't wait for the day when I wake up and I'm like, I'm going to sell my Super Nintendo collection. It would not be the first time. But anyway, I don't know. I just thought it would be fun to do this and give you guys some free backer early or backer only content. So I know I haven't been doing regular content that often, but you guys are still paying me, and so I want to try to make sure like you guys are at least getting something. So thank you very much for continuing to do that. It does actually help me a lot. Trust me. I still kind of rely on the stuff that comes from YouTube and Patreon, with how my budget works right now. So, yeah, I just want to be able to give back to you guys. So thanks for giving to me, and hopefully you guys enjoy me giving back to you. I'm going to try to do a couple more of these, backer only videos, these cheap ones, if I can find some quick and easy topics. Like this was quick and easy. All this stuff was already out because I've been playing them over the weekend. And yeah, so, but anyway, guys, that's going to do it for me. Thanks for watching. And until the next one, take it easy.